Andrew, let's start with what is C.A.M.P, the Canadian Anti-Monopoly Project? What do you hope to achieve with this new think tank?
So one of the biggest things we want to do is bring a new voice and a new perspective to the discussion about to the competition policy discussion, because for the last 30, 40 years, it's really been dominated by institutional experts, and it's become very, very technocratic, very expert driven. Whereas historically, it's been much more open, much more democratic, much more open to all Canadians, to everybody to contribute to the discussion. So that's one thing right off the bat is we want to bring more voices and new diverse voices into this discussion.
Andrew, is there anyone in these kind of consultations around changes to the Competition Act? Is there anyone who represents consumers' voices when it comes to monopolies? If it's dominated by institutions, I think there are a lot of institutions in this country that can benefit from monopoly power. That includes, our political leaders.
Mhm. Yes, and I think it not as there's not as much or not as many people speaking for consumers and even just regular Canadians and regular people in small businesses and small towns. So that's where we want to come in is we want to hopefully be that voice for people or also show people how they can find their voice and speak up about this as well because it does impact all of us. This isn't something just off to the side that we don't all need to worry about.
Yeah, I mean, we're all consumers of something. So Keldon, what type of issues are you going to be working on and writing about at the Canadian Anti-Monopoly Project?
Well, I think in the short term, we want to focus on the government has at least announced its intention to review Canada's competition laws. So I think a big thing we want to do is to raise awareness on that, bring in a more diverse group of Canadians, as well as communicate to folks why they should care about this. Because as we've discussed, this can be quite a technical issue, but the impact is really felt when you or I go to the grocery store or try to book a plane ticket. And so, as we said, some of these things are unavoidable. And so, a big task in the near future is to make sure that consultation, should it occur, be as diverse as possible.
Robin, one of the things that C.A.M.P has expressed interest in is law reform, of making some amendments to the Competition Act. What at a high level are some of those changes that you'd like to see?
Yeah, so we want to be providing recommendations to all the core aspects of competition law. The two big ones being the way that we regulate mergers and acquisitions in this country, and the second major class being what we call abusive dominance. So when you have a big dominant business or a group of businesses that are dominant, that are engaging in business practices that are intended to or are designed to undermine competition. And so this is really the bread and butter of competition law, both in Canada and elsewhere. And we want to be providing recommendations that make the law easier to enforce, that create outcomes that are more fair to various stakeholders, consumers, small businesses, and workers increasingly.
Robin, I know the Competition Act did have some recent amendments. What can you tell me about those recent changes and if you think they're going to actually achieve this goal of making Canada more competitive?
Yeah, one of the most profound changes, I think, in the recent revisions is a new provision that makes it a criminal offense to fix wages. So previously, it was perfectly legal for businesses to sit in a smoky room together and collude to fix wages. Now, this could fall under different provisions of the Act, and the Competition Bureau tried to do this with the hero pay fiasco around the beginning of the pandemic, where grocery store executives phoned each other up and said, hey, let's lower people's wages because they had given workers a boost in light of the pandemic. And so this sort of behavior is not criminal, but it will be in the future. And this is exciting, but it also raises some questions about gaps in enforceability. I think that we need to think about a more broader, wholesome review that looks at critically these new provisions and how they fit together as a comprehensive suite of policies.
Right. When we come back, I want to talk about this recent outage at Rogers and what role that plays in the discussion around monopoly power in Canada.